Like I said, it's sunny here in St. Louis, so it's a great day to talk about our favorite topic at KETIV, revitalizing American manufacturing for a better tomorrow. So the way we're going to do that today is talking with you, our attendees, the leaders of manufacturing companies. We know that winners in manufacturing are taking big risks and facing big issues head on. So we just wanted to talk through what we think are the 5 biggest issues that manufacturers are facing and how that's going to impact their profitability in 2023 and beyond. So that's me on screen with my big tough guy mug on there, DJ Monzyk. I'm the director of marketing here at KETIV. Joe's always smiling. He's the VP of sales here. And we have you there captured as a bubble because we really want you guys to participate. We urge you to drop in questions, challenge us, put your own thoughts, because this is going to be hopefully more of an organic conversation. We don't want this to be a presentation. So I come to you with a background in product configuration, CPQ, and manufacturing. I've had a manufacturing focus for the last few years. I'm digital transformation obsessed. You hear that topic from me and my team. It's because we live it every day. Joe's going to tell you about it. I'm transforming our department and the way we do business all the time, going to highly structured data models that are connected, and all the stuff that the winners in manufacturing are doing too. So I'll let Joe introduce himself here. Go ahead, Joe, kick it off.
Thanks, DJ. Yeah, so I'm recently new to KETIV. I've been here now 7 months. However, I have been a close partner with KETIV for 15 years, as I recently left Autodesk after a 14-year career. But when I was preparing for this, DJ, I wanted to say that I've been in the business for 30 years, but I checked the dates and it's actually more than 30 years. So now I'm kind of embarrassed how old I actually am. But I remember graduated from college in the spring of '90 and entered General Motors. And so I have an engineering background, spent a couple of about 2.5 years at General Motors as a design engineer in the great city of Flint, Michigan, and then made my way into the high-tech world and joined a company called PTC. It was called Parametric Technology Corporation at the time, and we were about 50 million in sales. And when I thought I was smart, we were $1 billion, which was about 8 years later. Lived all over the world, and then did 3 startup companies. Owned part of my own company with a great partner in the aerospace industry, and then ended up at Autodesk after that, and then ultimately here at KETIV. So talked to a lot of customers over the years, seen a lot of ups and downs in the markets. We've been through this before, and I've experienced it a number of times, and so we just really wanted to share that knowledge of what 2023 looks like.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah. It's been great to have you as part of the team. We feel the depth, right, when we have that history and can really speak to our customers, and it's helped me a lot too. So glad to have you on the team. So back to the you part of this audience. Again, I challenge you guys to speak up, ask questions, and take a note. I urge you to take a note about something you see today in the presentation or the discussion that you think you could take action on, right? What's one tidbit you can walk away and say, I think I can make a phone call, email somebody, and get started on something to make an impact on the business. That's really what this series is about. It's about trying to really get out of the theoretical and get into the practical. So let's talk about the content of this, right? So the first thing we're doing today is really, again, talking about those 5 biggest challenges, and we'll dive into that here in a moment. The point of this one is really just to talk about what's driving inhibitors to growth, what has people worried, where we can go to surmount those challenges. We have some polls for you. We have some Q&A, again, in an effort to just get a conversation going. Next session we're doing is on February. I just made it up of my own month. February 23rd, practical strategies for conquering the biggest risks in manufacturing. So here the idea, again, we want you to come with your questions and experiences, but we really want to zoom in on 2 focus areas we think are some of the highest concerns for manufacturers, really discussing digital transformation for manufacturing and the importance of creating a digital thread centered around your core intellectual property. It's really a conversation you want to have around putting that core IP at the center of everything the company does, making sure that it's at the center of your design, the customer experience, all the way to the factory floor. So you're going to hear us talk about that and why that's so important for manufacturers going forward. And lastly, our third session is going to be an inside look at a company. So we're going to zoom in, talk to a company about their entire experience. They're going to talk about how they identified their biggest challenge points, how they decided to turn that into action, and eventually a solution. And actually, they're going to show us that solution in a real-time demo. So you're going to kind of see from birth all the way to delivery how an idea got from a digital transformation idea out to creating value for the company. So I hope you guys join us for all those. We'd love to hear your insight because you're the leaders of your companies. We want that industry veteran insight that you're going to get from people like Joe here, from the customers, but also we want this to be shared amongst each other. All right, so let's jump in. What are those top 5 challenges? We've done a lot of reading, talking to tons of customers, our partners. We have great relationships with Autodesk, Ansys, Tacton, and other great delivery partners. And there's all these top 5, top 7, top 12 lists we've looked at, and we really boiled down to these 5 biggest inhibitors to profitability. So we're going to walk through them real quick, kind of jump into a topic, and then discuss it, and just move to the next one. So kind of keep these in your head. Maybe you have some questions you can think of and send our way. So before we get started, I am going to do a quick poll just to get your feelings on which of these topics might be the most pertinent. What's top of mind for your organization right now? Is it concerns about inflation and risk and how to protect against that? Are you dealing with supply chain woes, still hungover from COVID-19 and all that good stuff? Are you trying to really find a digitalization approach? Are you trying to reinvent how you invent your products and improve them? Is sustainability becoming a concern? A lot of times, we're working with European partners and it's more front of mind than American companies, but we're seeing more and more interest in that category. Or heck, maybe we didn't get these topics right at all, in which case call us out, right? If we didn't get them. So interestingly, I'm looking at the voting coming in, got high participation rate, and it looks like we've got a dead heat, interestingly. We got 40%, 40%. So kind of across the board here, it looks like people have concerns. So looks like we could have a good dynamic discussion on each one of these. So let's jump in. Let's talk about that inflation and risk. That was the first one I saw light up. Somebody was quick to press that button, but that was a top concern for them. So yeah, I know with, again, COVID-19, everybody's hearing about inflation on the nightly news. You guys are probably having issues at your companies with this. You've got employment struggles because the price of labor is going up. I mean, every angle, right, Joe? And we're getting attacked from all sides.
We are. So, one of the things when we talk about inflationary risks inside of our market, we had the luxury over the last X number of years, I would say going back even pre-COVID, with cheap money in the market. The interest rates, the low, the prime rate has been incredibly low since coming out of almost 2008 when we had the last huge recession. The Fed has kept interest rates artificially low, and there was probably a time a number of years ago when we should have been creeping that interest rate up to offset what eventually was going to happen. And so, but we didn't do it. I think we all got very used to cheap money in the market, and it drove revenues. And so the top thing that most companies were graded on was revenue generation. Just drive as much revenue as you could at whatever cost it was, because money was cheap. I can get new employees. I can get loans at very low dollar rates, and it put a lot of artificial money into the market, which Those who've been through the economics courses know that ultimately is going to drive inflation. It will happen. And so then you got COVID, pandemic. I mean, all this stuff happens that is, unforeseen, and we have the perfect storm. So in today's 2023 market, where we're finding our customers, it's all about GP. It's all about that profitability of the business. So even here at KETIV, it's not necessarily about just driving top line revenue. It's about the profitability in each one of those decisions. Okay. And so we're getting more and more executives reaching out to us as they deal with the issues that are at hand for their company, because they have a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. They want to continue on that journey. They can't stop riding the bike. The bike has to be ridden. They have to continue. But there's potholes. Now there's hills, more than were anticipated. So they need to set these objectives and strategies going forward, but how do they do that? And so some of the key areas that we're discussing with our partners are our employees' labor cost. We may be a technology company, but in our conversations, we're talking about labor costs. We're talking about supply chain disruptions. We're talking about technology, that continuation of digital manufacturing, smart factories, data security, and sustainability. It's massive. We've signed up for these net zero ideas, and we can't stop. We have to continue. But how do you do that in today? And so when you look at supply chain, and we're going to talk about some more of these, but there's this thing that I want to talk about in a little bit called microeconomies and right sourcing, and how companies are logistically handling those things. Digital manufacturing, from a digital transformation perspective, automation, data. We live in a society where it's information when you need it, where you need it, anytime, anyhow. That's what we have it. We have it, that information accessible at our fingertips, but how do we deal with that data? And how is it a crystal ball for the future? Any executive wants to have a crystal ball. They're looking for the information they don't know. What can give me a little bit of an advantage in my business with my consumers, with my suppliers, these types of things. And ultimately, now that data is so important, how are we handling data? How are we integrating that data? How are we securing that data? We look at Snowden, that situation that dates back a long time now, but he walked in with a USB stick and took all that information. And so that's still happening today. So even as we have some securities, there's still vulnerabilities within data security, but then how am I leveraging that data are two things. So those are the things about risk, mitigating risk around inflation, because money's not going to be cheap. Interest rates are going up. The Fed's already saying it's going to do it again. So now it's about the core principles of how I run my business. And that's what I should be focused on. And that's what we're focused on here at KETIV.
Right. And this is just to remind everybody, this is a survey that is anonymous, right? So we don't know how you're responding, which I want to preface this next polling question with that, because just generally speaking, we're talking about the effects of this, right? What's the lagging indicator? And that is growth and potentially decline. So we're curious here how you feel your general trajectory is going. Do you feel like your business right now is growing? Are you on a slight decline because of these pressures? Are you kind of flat? Or maybe worst of all, you don't really know, right? Maybe you're not sure what direction you're headed, or maybe you lack the data to be able to really clearly point to that. But we're interested to see kind of where the struggles are. All right, cool. So we're getting some good responses here kind of across the board. The good news is that I'm not seeing anybody in the declining category. Maybe they're not willing to share that, which is understandable. I never like to say when business is down myself either, but we'll go ahead and close this poll though, and we'll show them. Surprising number of people that actually really don't know. And honestly, I'm not all that surprised, because I think that goes back to that question of data and how much do you know about the customer, the transactions, how optimized you are, right? How profitable all that is, right? If you've been focused like on top line revenue, like you were talking about earlier, Joe, maybe you've lost some of that fidelity, right? So, all right, let's talk about one of those contributors, right? We talked a lot about supply chain and suppliers, and what does that mean? Where does the risk lie these days with how things have changed? And yeah, Joe, let's kick it off again. Let's talk about supply chain and what that means to us.
Yeah, an interesting fact, and I was reading this in Deloitte, that said that 80% of surveyed manufacturers have experienced heavy to very heavy impacts and disruption in their supply chains in the last 12 to 24 months. That's tough to deal with, right? And I love you're showing this picture of the port here. I mean, here in Los Angeles, at one point, we had so many container ships that were backed up between the port of LA and Catalina Island. I spent I lived in Asia for a while and spent a fair amount of time in Singapore. And if anybody's been to Singapore, it is incredible the amount of container ships that circle that area. And it reminded me of just what was going on, but nobody was taking those products off those ships. And so they sat there, and how did I get access to that? And so one of the things that is supply chain, and I brought this up, it's about microeconomies. And this has been evolving here in the United States for a while now. It's about local capacity. And so I'm kind of familiar with this a little bit because I grew up in a town, as I said earlier, Flint, Michigan, that was decided to, in the late 70s, early 80s, outsource almost everything. And it destroyed the local economy within that town. It was really incredible. But also that dependency on going overseas has been a rough one for many companies, and the predictability and the quality and the things that go into the interactions of trying to set up networks throughout a global economy, which we have to. That's not a question of we have to, but what's evolved is the ability to right source. And our resurgence here in America, we've seen it in the last 10, 15 years in manufacturing, because companies have said, look, I can go ahead and source locally and get higher quality products because I have an interaction with a local distributor. And I don't have to be so dependent on overseas. And then, of course, COVID hits, boom, we don't have that. So being able to, and the U.S. Commerce Department calls it a microeconomy, because the U.S., from their perspective, and I think in a lot of people's minds, is solving the 300,000 employee problem, which in the 1950s and 1960s, with Westinghouse and General Electric and General Motors and Fords and all these kinds of companies, they had those types of employees. Here in the United States, that's gone. We're not going to solve problems like that. Those high labor processes are going to be done overseas. There's no question. That's where the labor is cheap. However, microeconomies are dealing with more short runs, more prototyping, where you can get access to it locally. And so that sourcing, right sourcing, and having redundancy in your supply chain, and the companies that we deal with that had some form of redundancy had a connection to overseas, but they also had connections domestically, they did a much better job balancing those heavy and very heavy disruptions within their supply chain. And the second thing that is key in today's environment is having a relationship with your suppliers. Because one thing that we see is that companies can just push down on their suppliers and demand price cuts, or they can go to the low-cost bidder. But when you do that, you're also sacrificing what that supplier provided. And they provide way more than just a transaction to your company. It becomes in the forms of service, support, reliability. There's a relationship that has been built between you and your suppliers. And as we move through an inflationary time and trying to mitigate risk, having a good relationship between both, you can get an understanding of, look, I need a price break at the moment. We might go back to a higher price down the road, but at the moment we need to work with each other instead of I'm just going to leave you and go to the next portion or the next supplier that might not have the quality or the resilience or the support that you're looking for. So you have to be careful in those areas. And the other thing is implementing technology in that transformation inside of that supply chain. So continuing to have a digital transformation strategy and having, because the importance of innovation, and we're going to get to that in a minute, is really important as we innovate our new products, new ideas, things that we have to do in our lives. But having a digital transformational strategy on top of that involves your supply chain will be crucial to success. There's no question.
Cool. Joe, I actually have a question on this topic I wanted to surface for you too. Let me pull that up here. It says, do you think this increased level of local sourcing and control allows for continued reliance on just-in-time sourcing? So I guess we're saying, that was a big no-no. I kept hearing the news. I know they must be referring to this, the fact we're so reliant on that just-in-time approach, but nobody wants to hold inventory. So does this allow for a greater extension of that dream?
From a mathematical, statistical perspective, in an algorithmic way, absolutely, because we can't solve this problem with 1 + 1. This just-in-time delivery is an incredibly complicated algorithm. It really is. And it's taking some of the most brilliant statistical minds to be able to solve that. And so if you take it lightly, you're probably gonna get the problem wrong. But if you truly look at the balance of anticipated issues, and I do want right, because just in time makes a lot of sense. Again, I go back to my history. In the 1930s, General Motors owned every single aspect of the supply chain. They owned the iron ore mines in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. They owned their own shipping companies that moved the iron ore down through the Sault Ste. Marie, down Lake Huron, ultimately downriver to Detroit, and offloaded it. And then they had their own steel mills. That's how they controlled profitability in the 1930s. That, of course, has all gone away, where we outsource every single thing. That is a complicated algorithm to think about. That algebraic question or equation, it is complicated. But to their question, because this is just a personal opinion, I think trying to put too much stake on it's going to come from overseas is my answer, and that's not true. It is a mix. It's about right sourcing. Is the right calculation or the right addition to that mathematical problem. And so having multiple local suppliers that you can deal with will be beneficial to you, and they benefit from it as well.
Right. Right. We always talk about revitalizing American manufacturing. The best place to start is in your backyard, right?
You got it. And we're seeing a lot of very young people that are getting into the market and are being super successful because they have access to technology that they can get up and running instantaneously. And we have great suppliers of especially in the CNC world, that you can get into the business as low as $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and buy software that will run those machines, paid posts, and be up and running within a month.
Yeah, pretty
Versus
low risk,
years.
low cost, rather than having to order 1 million widgets and get them shipped and all that, right? So much more agile approach. And you got to think that generation saw their parents losing their jobs to those factories and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's probably worth having that ownership and that.
But what's interesting, DJ, is what you bring up is that companies like Amazon are perfecting our supply chain, right? I mean, I can order something, and there's been a few orders here recently where they delivered at the same day, which is incredible. I ordered something, and within 3 hours, it was locally sourced. They had it, they delivered it. That's really incredible. What's interesting about the supply chain is that new people are able to create their products and take advantage of that distribution network of Amazon and get into it. So it's not like they're having to restart or be a new person. They're basically a node that can enter onto the nodal stream and be able to relatively make money and supply to the demand that is needed. So it's a great symbiotic relationship that all of us are taking advantage of. And maybe that's why in your poll, you see a lot of people saying we're growing, because here in America, we are continuing to see that growth. And I know that we just had the report came out. I think we grew at 2.9%. In a lot of ways, it's still baffling to the markets that we continue to have high growth, even though we have inflationary pressures that are clear.
Yep. And you kind of talk about these partnerships. I think it goes back to that supplier partnership. So let's ask people about their experience with this, right? So how strategic are your relationships with your supplier partners? If you had to rate it, are you guys using them more as a commodity? Do you just kind of put them in a box, say these guys are really viable, or do you actually look to them to help solve challenges for you? Are they, are they as important as being advisors? Do you pick up the phone when you have a business trajectory question? I think the way you were talking about just a second ago, Joe, is tapping into something like the Amazon supply chain as a commodity, right? It's ubiquitous now. That why not just use that, right? But we also know that that's a big pool to be fishing in, and that's not necessarily a very tight relationship with a vendor. So, but yeah, it's nice to get things sent to your house in 3 hours. I've experienced that as well. It's pretty cool. Interestingly, I'm seeing it more on the commoditized side of the spectrum here. I'll go ahead and end it and show everybody. As a commodity or as a valuable resource, but not necessarily strategic partnerships. So interesting. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. So let's move to the next topic, the path to digitalized manufacturing, right? So if people see our marketing content now, this is a lot what we're talking about. The whole digital transformation term might be used a lot, but it's really important, we think, and Joe's going to share how we live this every day. I talked about it up front, how I'm helping reinvent my department, how we automate, how we integrate our data, our systems. I've been here a little over 1.5 years, and I've been obsessed with maturing us, right? It's not good enough just to tell our story and serve our customers. We need to be able to do it really efficiently, be able to understand if we're talking to the right people, making the right connections, right? So data is really important to me and my team. Transformation is important to us. So Yeah, Joe, I know you and your team talk about it a lot with our customers. What are your thoughts about this one?
Well, you know what? I'm going to relate this to our own transformation here at KETIV, and I'll weave it in a little bit with manufacturers. But when I joined, our executive leadership said, look, we've got to balance two things. We've got to protect long-term profitability of the business, our core, what our strengths are. At the same time, we have to maintain momentum, and we need to continue. But and I love this slide. I mean, you developed this slide for us, and when you look at the first one, it's this unpredictable modern markets, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the down the road. But in this world that we live in, and I call it the scrolling consumer, right? So I scroll on my phone, I swipe to the left, swipe to the right. That's how I make my purchasing decisions. This is how I get my information. Incredibly unpredictable. Where is the consumer going to go in their next idea? And so same with us. How do we deal with this? And as we go through, the next one is what does the customer want? And because we have access and so much information from our customers through data, we can start to get a much deeper impression of where they're at. There's a great book that was written by a Nobel Prize winner. It's called Factfulness. I recommend that people take a look at this book, because one thing that's interesting, we make decisions based on about, on average, 50 to 60 years ago. That's where we have our base impressions, is in the past. It's incredible to think of where someone's going to go. And I challenge, I challenge my team here at KETIV, but I challenge my kids. Try to think 50 years in advance. So let's go back. So 50 years ago, 1973. So in 1973, can you predict what the world's going to look like in 2023? Wow. Internet, right? The things that we have, Amazon, all of these processes in which we deal with in just 50 years. So now let's take a look at 2073. Is our business built for long-term profitability? Is it built to maintain momentum through that? And do we see things through the eyes of our own customers? So DJ, if you'll go one more click. So it's about dealing with all of those things that complexity of expansion and trying to hit all of these new markets and broadening our capabilities and things that we need to look at, because our customers are changing. We can't be the same company we were just a few years ago. There's new technologies that we have to adopt. Our people have to be enabled. We have to become the expert to talk to our customers. The poll, I'm going to bring this back to the poll that you just had. It showed no one chose that you were a problem solver or a trusted advisor. And one of those things is that most people get information on their own these days. They go do their own research. It's so accessible that I can just go to the internet and start to get information and build my own narrative that I want. But the problem that we find is that it becomes a situation where you're being self-diagnosed. I have the sniffles, I go to the web, next thing you know, I check 3 or 4 websites, I think I got stage 4 cancer. Because it's a common thread that sniffles, WebMD, everybody said that this was, one of the symptoms of stage 4 cancer. However, who's my trusted advisor on that? Should I go to the doctor? Should I actually talk to somebody who is specialized in that area? You know, we don't tend to do that anymore. We tend to make our own diagnosis. And so, you know, taking advantage of your suppliers who do, they spend all of their day in and out of these technologies, not just with you, but all of your competitors. They are masters at industries. So if you use your suppliers correctly, you as a business can gain lots of insights to what they're hearing throughout the whole industry itself. They see trends better than you sometimes because they're seeing the problems and the issues that folks have inside of it. So let's go the final click here.
Yeah, and actually, I had a supplier like that myself. You know, I saw them as a commodity. I told them how I wanted my work to be done. Realized I wasn't really getting the results I want because I had self-prescribed the problem and self-diagnosed and just told them what to do. And they happily took the money as a supplier. But when I changed vendors and they challenged me and started asking me tough questions, I was like, wait a second, I don't think I have the right partner here. And I realized, yeah, after transitioning that having somebody really sit there and challenge you rather just accept the work and really ask the tough questions and set up a new framework. We saw what we were doing specifically in that area just explode because we had the right advisor.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, this digital maturity that KETIV is advancing to, and if you notice the slide, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, it's come into clarity, right? Now we can start to see this person much more clear as we made this journey through the path. So, you know, it starts out very blurry because it is unpredictable. But where do you get that information? And that's what's key. And I know one thing that I always, when I have conversations with people and I go try to get advice, the big question I want to ask them is, what don't I know? What am I missing? What's wrong with me? It's okay. Tell me what your view of that is. That's taking advantage of your suppliers and then becoming a problem solver and a trusted advisor. And it's not always financial. They're going to charge me for this no, it doesn't have to be that relationship. It's you need to have a love and a passion for what you do and willing to take on different people's purview of what your particular problems are. And together you can build a great path and have that maturity and go through what many people have deemed as this digital transformation as we try to hit long-term profitability, keep momentum going, taking on advanced technologies, planning for 50 years down the road. Okay.
Yep. Cool. So we talked about our journey. We're curious to see where you guys think who are attending here, where you fall on the spectrum. So we often show people a spectrum kind of top down here, the top being like more reactive, right? You're getting business done, but it may not be super strategic from a digital standpoint. All the way down to the more advanced one here. Let me kick this off. Yeah, so next topic we're going to talk about is really accelerating innovation. And since all these seem to get the same weight up front, sounds like this topic's just as front of mind as everybody, as the other topics. And I think, you know, in today's day and age, you know, innovation's never been more exciting, never been easier yet harder, right? We have some amazing tools, but you have to have the right people, the right ideas to capture that lightning in a bottle and make money from it. So yeah, I'm curious. Let's dive into this one and talk about how people are innovating differently and maybe how people can try new things in 2023 and beyond. Thanks everybody for voting. We're starting to get these in here. It looks like, wow, I'm getting some really cool results here on this poll. I'm glad I finally figured out how to get it to work. Let me go ahead and share it. So it looks like we do have some people who are more strategic, sustainable, and autonomous. So people are looking to the future and figuring out ways to do business better. So I'd love to talk to these people and understand what they're doing right to have gotten to that phase of the business. So go ahead, Joe. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So, it's interesting that the picture that you show, farming. We just talked about 50 years in advance. Let's look at 100 years. Let's look at 300 years of this picture. What's different, right? What's different from this photo of 300 years ago in the same farm? Still a piece of equipment, still a human. Now the interaction is a little bit different, right?
The horse looks weird to me.
How's that?
The ox looks a little weird. That's the only difference.
Right. And so the question is how do you have this agility? Now we look at the water crisis in the West. It's real for whatever reason, however if it's a cycle, if it's a trend, how do we deal with that? How do we innovate? I understand the confusion that's out there. I mean, we have political winds that go in many different directions, pulling people to think one way or to fit their narrative in another way. So you as a manufacturer, how do you read all of that? What does the market want? That is an incredible challenge that you could guess right, that you want to put your investment dollars in this particular area. And it's about the agility to be able to handle that. And so am I building a platform? Am I building a modular approach to my innovations? These are key. The ability to go quickly on things and have to be able to test. And we go back to this idea called digital prototyping, right? And I would imagine that before this team of folks put this particular apparatus in the field, how much prototyping did they do? Was it digital? Do they have a digital twin of this particular equipment, that this piece of equipment that's right here in the field has a living, breathing digital twin that they're tweaking real time at a computer while this is moving in the field and getting real time feedback, optimizing its approaches of that particular field and really taking in that long-term profitability of that field. So all of these economic factors that go into profitability based on just trying to mitigate your risk and inflation, maybe now I'm worried about those two things, but as you kind of hear through this whole dialogue that we've been having, we need to be doing that every single day. And where am I getting that information from? And where am I testing it? Where am I learning? And so I would just push that, everybody start to ask more questions of their suppliers. Share information, build a better relationship, build better redundancy within your own supply chains, and put those things to work, because someone once said to me, you can win alone, but don't lose alone. And what happens is we tend to lose a lot more because we go it alone, is basically what that is. And there's lots of people out there that are willing to support and build a comprehensive strategy to your innovation and where you're going. So that's just something to share on innovation. There's lots of technologies out there to do the digital prototyping, part of your digital transformation, taking in this information. So these particular designs and efforts, especially as we enter into a lot of new markets based on climate change, how we're dealing with our renewable energies, but just taking advantage of the internet, optimization of farming, food sources, all those types of things become quite a challenge in our society. But there's it's really interesting, and basically having that agility to innovate is probably the key message here.
Right. Yeah, and I did choose this image very purposefully because I thought it was a cool juxtaposition of kind of nature and machine and man here. And I heard an amazing use case on a podcast that it very much reminded me of this robot image where somebody had a robot that was basically out in the field, and its job was to destroy the pests that were a risk to the crop without using pesticides. It was basically like a little laser beam shooting robot. And the amazing thing that really blew my mind about it was not even that part of it, which is amazing. It was the idea that team was now connecting to OpenAI, and the fact that it's going to go to an AI-driven technology where they could literally recognize a new bug. It could send it back to the team and decide, is this a good or a bad bug, right? Update the firmware. All of a sudden, within minutes, you're now exterminating a new pest that you didn't know was in that field before. Where traditional software development, everybody knows, right? You're talking months of software development, getting stuff rolled out, getting it in the field. Like, imagine the connection now between IoT, AI, design, digital twins. I mean, the possibilities get really exciting and quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, we all have our cash cows. We have our cash cow within our companies that is our base. But what are we innovating on? Where are we leading? There has to be some strategic initiative and objectives that says we are spending X amount of our dollars in the next innovation. Where is that? And it has to be forward thinking, and that's really about having the ability to have a good partner that can help you stretch and view different technologies to help you get there.
So let's talk about that for those who are out here trying to stretch, right? Where's your next innovation? How are you going to achieve it? Is it better tools, better information, control of your IP? Is it better talent to help you achieve those goals? Or is innovation not really a priority because you're just trying to keep the wheels on, keep profitability going? You're not really worried about tomorrow. You're trying to feed today, which we know is dangerous, but sometimes you get stuck in that pattern too. So I got a poll opened up. We'll just give it a couple seconds, let you guys interact with it. And then we'll hit our last topic, which is sustainability. We know it's getting close to the top of the hour, so we'll kind of button this one up quickly. We do have a little bit of time for a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in right now so we can leave time and make sure and address those. I'm going to close out the poll in the interest of time here. I just saw another one come in. We'll go ahead and share these. So yeah, it looks like people are understanding the need to really invest in the technology side of this. And I'm not surprised to see also some votes in the talent acquisition and retention, because technologies do not run themselves, right? If you could have simulation software, you better have somebody who knows how to run it. So any thoughts on those results, Joe?
Yeah, I think that people are tuning into KETIV, so they know KETIV technologies, and we're a technology company, and so they also are manufacturers and probably interested in hearing about new processes, new technologies, these types of stuff. So that doesn't surprise me. What I think is the issue is execution. And so, one of the last topics, we talked about sustainability. And the reason why we brought this one up, because we saw the top 7, top 12, as you talked about, DJ, top 15. So where is sustainability in 2023 versus where it was in 2018, 2019? And the reason why I left this on here is because if this was already in everybody's strategic plan, It was 5-10 years. By 2040, by 2035, by 2028, we're going to reach X, right? And we're going to have net zero carbon emissions. How do you stop that? How do you say, well, I'm going to put that aside and not do that? And I think that the reason why I bring this up, and I bring this up last, is that those companies that still stay focused on their mission, but able to adopt the right technologies, as the poll just said, adopt the new things that help them with their profitability without just going hog wild and spending whatever freely wherever they want, they will succeed, because this is where the world's going to go. It's going in that direction. The optimization of our processes. Nobody, I think I wrote on a LinkedIn a week ago or so, I said, it's 2023. Why is this process so manual? And when I walk through the airport, and it feels like 1975 when I walk through the airport, it just drives me crazy. That there's so much potential out there for innovation in the things that we do every day to help our world, to help our society do better. That's why sustainability is not going anywhere. It's going to continue. There's still massive growth in level 4 countries around the world. Lots of people are entering the middle class. There's more consumption that will continue. Once a little bit of the money balances itself out and prices readjust, another 10, 12 years of continuous growth. So are you prepared for that? Or are you just putting your head in the sand and worried about today? I granted, we have to manage through this process, but we still have to keep our eyes on where we're going as a society, as manufacturers. We've all signed up for this, because I don't think that we're going to go back to the farming of 1923 or 1883. We are moving forward and taking advantage of all of these different technologies. So I know that we're almost to the end of the hour, so I kind of wanted to wrap it up right there. But it was fun being on the call, DJ. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Yeah, thanks for all this, discussion and thoughts and research you did to make this a good discussion. If anybody does have questions, I urge you to send them our way. We're happy to answer them offline for you. Just a couple next steps, please. We do encourage you to join us for our second session on February 23rd. Right. So today we're talking a lot about kind of the pressures, the challenges, what's driving change. We're going to really start to talk about how to affect change next. So again, trying to take you through the whole journey. And then if you guys have some curiosity talking about possibilities with us, we can run workshops. We have consultation abilities. So just talk to your favorite rep at KETIV, whether that's somebody in customer success, if you're a customer, if you have a salesman you like to work with, if you know Ulysses up front, you can always hit me up or Joe. We're happy to get you connected to the right people. And there's some good further reading down here. We have some similar videos to this, some webinars we did called our digital manufacturing series, which is meant for this audience. And then we also have some manufacturing transformation stories. So if you want to see how people have applied these digital solutions to their business, you can see them there. So I do appreciate everybody coming today. We'll be sending out a recording tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for that, share it with others, and please share this for next time so that other people come in February, and please come back and see us. Joe, thanks again for your time. And again, thanks everybody out there, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, DJ.
All right, take care, everybody.